I grew up with a single mom who had schizophrenia,
Mm.
and I had an absent dad who really wasn't around. And a lot of that was internalized, trauma. And pretty much I lived in the projects. So that within itself is traumatizing.
Mm.
All of those things created these different parts in myself that felt like I wasn't good enough. I was severely depressed, and I was probably on a path that was self-destructive.
John, what were the biggest changes that you've experienced since 5-MeO, and what was that like for you?
It's really hard to describe, like having a sense of peace consistently. It's helped me get to know John, and that's what I'm eternally grateful for.
This podcast is brought to you by Enfold, offering the world's most comprehensive 5-MeO DMT program. To learn more, visit enfold.org. That's enfold.org, or click on the link in the show notes.
Today I'm joined by John, who is from Valparaiso, Indiana. He's a pharmaceutical sales rep who's also just recently gone back to school for his MSW, and who just informed me today is his birthday. So happy birthday, John. Thanks for spending part of your birthday with me.
Oh, thank you. I wouldn't want to be anyplace else.
It's a real pleasure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So John, you first joined us at Enfold in April of 2024, and then more recently came back in July of this year, 2025. I'm curious, before that first visit in April, what had you heard of 5-MeO DMT, and what made you look into it as something that you wanted to personally experience?
Yeah. So at my previous company, I kind of learned about, psychedelics. I had an FDA approved treatment for treatment resistant depression. Had, found out a little bit about, ketamine, and had that experience. I think looking at my life, I've had off and on depression in my life, not just, episodic, but, just ongoing. But, in years I had learned how to manage it. Sometimes it was self-medicating with different substances. And so, working around, psychedelics, FDA approved psychedelics, I saw how it was helping people heal. So I experienced it myself, but I kind of was also on this spiritual journey, and I wanted to try to see if I can experience something a little deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of, I'm a kind of a little bit of a geeky science guy, and kind of did my research and found out that 5 was pretty much as good as it gets.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, let me look into this, and I kind of did my research, and then I landed on Enfold.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
And so before 5-MeO DMT, had you had any experience with other, say, in some ways less powerful, less potent psychedelics?
The only one was ketamine.
Mm-hmm.
So had an experience with ketamine, did ketamine treatments to help with my depression, and definitely believed it helped. And just in kind of like doing my research and everything, like, okay, so what's, really next? I think that was more of kind of a mild nervous system reset,
Mm-hmm.
but I was looking to go a little bit deeper, hopefully with a spiritual component of it. And just, looking at other psychedelics, I felt like whatever experience I was going to have, I didn't want to be aware.
Put me out.
When I say that, talking more like psilocybin or whatever, it's kind of like, I knew 5 was a little bit different. You're aware,
Mm.
but it's not a, long drawn out process in order for you to experience the medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of like felt, that, that was something I really wasn't ready for. But I saw that, 5 probably was a medicine that was probably as good as you could get, as far as helping with nervous system reset. And, I was on a spiritual journey, still am. So I thought, like, okay, this may give me the enlightenment that I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that depression that you mentioned, John, like, yeah, could you say more about that? Like what that was like for you, and maybe even if you have a sense of what was causing it, or where it came from. I know that you've mentioned having a bit of a, more challenging upbringing. And
Right.
so, yeah, I don't want to infer that that was part of it, but would love to hear about any of that, if you're open
Yeah.
to sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up with a single mom in the States who had schizophrenia.
Mm.
And I had an absent dad who really wasn't around. If anybody has had a family member who lives with schizophrenia, you know that it's ups and downs. And so with my mom, she was diagnosed, probably a little bit after I was born. And so living with a parent with schizophrenia, off and on, you're going to experience a lot of trauma, you know. When they have breaks, just different things. And I think although, my relatives try to intercede when they could, I think it was really, kind of tough for me.
Hmm.
And a lot of that was kind of like internalized, trauma. And, just growing up, here in the States, we weren't well off. Pretty much I lived in the projects. So that within itself is traumatizing,
Mm.
growing up in housing projects in the States, and just life in general. And so growing up with a mother with schizophrenia, and always, feeling like something's wrong with you, being embarrassed by your mother's illness, all of those things created, these different parts in myself that felt like, I wasn't good enough. And, regardless of, what my success was and what I accomplished, in the back of my mind, I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt imposter syndrome, all those things that you feel. I spent time in the military, in the Marines, and came out and kind of like, really built a life for myself. Got married, divorced, went back to college, got a really good job. I have two wonderful kids, but even after you know that success, kind of like always had that imposter, not good enough syndrome in the back of my mind. And I think because of what I experienced, growing up, and a lot, in my 20s and everything, I just had unbelievable amount, I would say, of unprocessed trauma.
Mm.
And now I kind of like understand that.
Mm.
I think before Enfold, I didn't have a clue what was going on, what it was all about. But now I really understand what all that meant and how it affected me and my nervous system and every part of me and how I interacted, here on the planet. And so, yeah. So knowing that, you know, having periods of in my life where I was severely depressed and I was self-medicating with alcohol, and I think I probably wouldn't even be here now if it wasn't for my kids
Mhm.
and my mom, because at some point she moved in with me, and I helped take care of her. And I say that because of the responsibility I had, taking care of my kids because they lived with me. I knew I had to be sober.
Mm.
So, drinking and taking care of kids is not an option. And so I quit. And I say, that probably saved my life
Mm.
because I was probably on a path that was, being self-destructive because of, just, everything that I had been through in life, and not even realizing what it was all about.
Mm.
Why was I feeling the way I felt? No matter how much success I had, no matter what achievements I had, no matter, how many friends I had, I just felt like, inside that, it wasn't enough, or that everybody was better than me, or, people didn't like me. All those stories that I was telling myself. But now I know it's not true. So, yeah,
Hmm. Thanks for sharing all
yeah.
that. Yeah, and definitely want to come back to what sounds like a self-worth piece.
Hmm.
But before we jump ahead to that or get into that, I'd love to hear, John, yeah, what you recall, how you would describe, say, that first 5-MeO experience in April of 2024. What was that like for you? And I know it's been a while, and that's a big question. It's a challenging experience to describe, but yeah, as best you can, how would you describe that to someone, and what was that like for you in April of 24?
Wow. Just looking back on April of 24, I think when I first went to Info, you go through the orientation process and everything, and you really think you understand what you're about to go through. I think, I was looking for this mystical, spiritual experience, right? I didn't really understand that it was bigger than that. It was bigger than a mystical, spiritual experience. And, learned really after the medicine ceremony, in weeks and months after, how the medicine really, really helped me. And so looking back on, you know, um, that experience, it was just, even both times, it's probably just one of the most beautiful experiences that I ever have felt in my entire life. And I say that, I don't know, is it because, the nervous system is being reset? And when you come out, right now it's just stuck on pure love. And that's what you feel overwhelmingly. But that's what I felt, Stephen and Austin being there. I think you were there too, right, Arthur?
That was my first intensive ever, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, very lucky for me to share it with you. So thank you.
Yeah. So, being there and having you guys there to guide me, hold space for me, that I felt safe. It was just like something that, you really, couldn't imagine. The container at Enfold is like nothing else. It's like you guys have left nothing undone, there in the process. And I just felt like coming out of the ceremony, I was like, WTF, right? Like, what was that? you know, because you feel a lot of things. It's like, back then the ceremony was a little different, so it's kind of like a little build up to the ceremony and everything. And coming out of that final one, I kind of felt like I had been launched into the universe of complete love. Like it was just like nothing I've ever experienced in my life. And I think, having those feelings kind of like let me know that what I had felt in the past wasn't real and was not true. Only love was real.
Mm,
And so
mm,
it was, nothing I expected. I mean, my experience is really, I thought it would be more mystical or more spiritual. And I think there's components to that components to that probably, after a year and a half or whatever, some of that starts to dissipate. But I can say for me, it was life changing,
mhm,
the experience.
mhm. Yeah, if say a close friend or somebody that you trust were to ask you what were the biggest changes that you've experienced since
Mhm.
ingesting 5-MeO, what would you tell them?
I would say the biggest thing is, you know, the ceremony and the experience at Info is just one component of it. It's really kind of like the integration afterward is where you start to see the biggest shift.
Mm,
And so I would say the thing that has been really life changing for me is the kind of like reset of my nervous system. speaking to, looking at how I experienced traumatic events in my life and everything, I was always going through life, being triggered by one thing or another and finding it challenging at times to reset and, regulate myself. If I had a negative experience, it probably would take me 5 to 7 days to get over it.
Mm-hmm.
After my experience with at Enfold, I started to notice a shift to where I was able to regulate myself a lot sooner, and I was able to process my emotions. And you know, uh, s- you know, especially after my recent trip, because I've done a lot more work.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if I was going to say to someone, if you feel like there's something like missing in you being able to kind of like be able to find a place of peace on a consistent basis, um, five will help you do that.
Mm-hmm.
It will help you get there because of how it works in the nervous system and the program that's set up at Info to help you with the integration process, like internal family systems, the somatic, cold water plunge, the sauna experience, like all of that stuff. I really didn't know until afterwards how important it was, and kind of like just resetting everything to a new baseline, that I could kind of like just my nervous system could like have a chill pill.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have to react to everything anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the main benefits of this medicine is the impact that it can have on our nervous system. And yeah, thanks for helping us describe that and sharing how that's been for you. Um, but yeah, you also mentioned another important piece, which is that, of course, the ceremony or the medicine experience itself, so to speak, is obviously a huge catalyst. We wouldn't feel different without the ceremony itself, but that a lot of the unfolding process and long-term benefits are sustained through integration, as we
Hmm.
call it, and as you called it. How does that look for you these days? How do you maintain, some of these nervous system benefits, perhaps, and I'd love to hear too, like if and how that integrates or is informed by your spiritual practice or spiritual journey. Yeah. What is
Yeah,
a day to day in that regard look like for you, John?
yeah. So I try to spend about you know 2 hours every morning. I get up before probably sunrise, and I have a spiritual practice that I try to do. I'm a Course in Miracles student, so I study A Course in Miracles. That has been my center
Mhm.
for the past 4 years. That has helped ground me in my spirituality. And so that's something that's really important to me. I've also, No Bad Parts. That book was introduced to me when I was at Enfold, so I was able to really look at that. I'd heard about it, a couple years ago when I volunteered as a court-appointed special advocate for children who were removed from the home, and my supervisor, she was doing some training, IFS training, and I was like, oh yeah, really, you know. And then I read the book, and it's like, wow, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I see these managers and protectors around here in these different parts. So I kind of like incorporated that into my integration process, and so it's really a spiritual process that I do, every day, and I take time to spend with self. And that spiritual process is really looking inward to myself and allowing, my internal self to guide me, to teach me and help me learn. And then doing the emotional work, like with No Bad Parts and Internal Family Systems. And also, I like to, work out every day, try to spend some time working out. I do meditation probably, 3 to 4 days a week. I usually use Austin and Steve's prompts and things that I've downloaded. So I do meditation and I journal pretty much every day.
Mm-hmm.
I think journaling is one of the coolest things I do because it really helps me really process where I am. And, just recently, I've been journaling probably for like 4 or 5 years, but recently I kind of like go back at the end of the day and see
Mm-hmm.
how I started. And it's like, oh, wow, that's cool,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to reflect on that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a host of things that, I try to do. A lot of it and most of it is things that I learned from Info.
Mm-hmm.
And, looking at the integrating process. I do yoga probably also. I do yoga, I'd say at least 4 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
That helps keep me grounded, along with, working out, exercise, going for long walks, all those things help keep me grounded.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Yeah.
And I love all that, John. Like that's sounds somewhat similar to my own personal practice for what it's worth. But I wonder, like, some people would probably hear like, oh, 2 hour morning routine. Like that sounds a lot. That sounds hard. Like, how do you experience that most days? And, how do you stay committed to that practice?
Yeah. I think, it's just starting where you are, meet yourself where you are.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, um, just understanding that nothing else is more important than you. One of the things that I've learned this year, that you're aware of, I had surgery for lung cancer,
Mm-hmm.
something just out of the blue right before, I was supposed to go to Enfold. And so I kind of realized how important my health is and taking that time for myself. And so, I get it. Life is coming at you and you have all these things, but I really believe that nothing is more important than your health and your spiritual practice or whatever that is. If it's working out, if it's journaling, whatever it is, you are the most important person, and taking that time for yourself on a daily basis consistently. It didn't like all happen at once. I just took baby steps.
Mm-hmm.
I, read for 15 minutes. I did yoga for 10 minutes. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of chunked it. Journal, for 5 minutes. It's kind of like chunked it, and I just continually built onto my practice. So it's kind of like meet yourself where you are, and do what's right for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One size doesn't fit all. Whatever that is, find out what works for you and just build on it. And that's kind of like what I've done over the past 4 years. Info was part of that next stage in that process of building on my practice and continues to be part of that process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite poems by Irish poet David White is "Start Close In," and he basically says the same thing that you did. Start with the first thing, not the second or the third. Start close in. Like, do what you can
Yeah.
do with what you have. And you may recall this from one of our closing talks, but Steve, our founder, loves to say, if you remember nothing else about integration, and I think you could extend this to include, any daily practices, do slow things and do things slowly. And
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, hopefully encompasses what you're talking about, like just slowing
Yeah.
down, starting, in
Yeah.
your own heart, in your own body. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely slowing down. One of the things I say to myself now when I'm doing things and everything I do, I say, what I'm doing is for the future John
Mm-hmm.
every day.
Yeah.
That's what, going back to school, that's with my spiritual practice, that's with my health. Everything is for the future John. I think like he'll appreciate this,
Yeah. Yeah.
if I do it today,
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like doing it. Sometimes I just want to roll out of bed and go have a cup of coffee and, just go sit out on the, patio and watch the sunrise. That's it.
Yeah.
But I know future John needs a little bit more than that, and he deserves a little bit more than that. So I'm just trying to look out for him right now.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And you mentioned, I think, an important piece, John, and I'd love to hear how or if it informed your return to 5MEO in July with us of this year, and that was the lung cancer discovery.
Yeah.
Yeah, what could you say about what that perhaps taught you, and if it was a motivating factor for coming back to Enfold, or if it informed your experience the second time in July.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely informed my experience. But I was actually scheduled to go to Info
Mm.
before I found out. So it kind of like I had to reschedule. And I think like, oh, wow, was that divine or what?
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
because I needed Info after that experience. I really did because it was very traumatic.
Hmm.
The surgery that I had was traumatic, and coming out of it, it's like, oh man, like, will I be able to recover from this? And I have. I saw my oncologist this weekend. She's like, I think you're cured,
Mm.
and she's like, you're good. I'll see you in 6 months,
Hmm.
just for a check. But that made me, coming out of diagnosis of lung cancer and having surgery, and just the fact that they found the cancer, it was by chance. It wasn't something, I wasn't having any symptoms.
Mm.
CT done for something else, and it showed up, and we explored it. And even when I had the surgery, wasn't sure what it was until it came out, and they realized like, hey, that was stage 1 cancer we took out. I was like,
Mm.
oh, okay.
Hmm.
So how's that shaped my practice? I think it helped me go deeper the second time, and it gave me a sense of comfort, although I did have some apprehension, and it wasn't about the ceremony and the experience. It was more about physically, would I be okay with 1/3, 1/4 of my lung taken out, and I put my faith kind of like, I don't know if Steve said this or who, in the body, that the body knows what it needs to do to regulate you,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
that it would do that in the medicine ceremony. So I kind of like said, hey, I'm going to do this, even though I'm having a little bit of apprehension from a physical point of view. I talked to my doctor. My doctor's like, hey, go for it. You're good, and so, but it did, like, in a sense, make me or help me want to go deeper this time. And I think this time I understood a lot more what I expected. I wasn't looking for this mystical spiritual experience. I was looking for an opportunity to continue to go within, to get to know self more.
Mm.
And I just really felt like I really believe that for me, the medicine allows me to do that because of the powerful reset of my nervous system that I've experienced. I don't find, even now, what's cool is it's just like, oh man, it's really hard to describe, like, having a sense of peace consistently.
Mm.
Doesn't mean, that things don't happen or I don't have experiences that, challenge me, from a spiritual perspective
Hmm.
or an emotional perspective. Because sometimes, the ego likes to trick you into thinking, you're healed so you can screw up and it can take over.
Mm.
But I find myself being able to center myself in a different way. And I also have to say that I have friends in my life now, include, my family, my kids, and everything, who serve me. When I say that, who are part of this journey, who, I don't look to them or they don't look to me to make each other feel special, that who are on a journey themselves and who are whole and complete and really understand that. And so I'm able to, draw from their experiences and their healing process too. And I'm, grateful for that, I think before Info, I probably was less trusting of people, even though I had some close friends. But now I'm more willing to open up, and I talk to people, about my experience at Enfold, especially when I see people are looking for something deeper than what they currently have. I have had some friends who've gone there after my experience,
Mm.
and so I think, yeah, for me, it's been again part of my journey, part of my healing process, part of my awareness, and I say, awakening into who John really is, like the eternal self. The second trip really kind of like, I think when I went the first time coming back, I say I was a baby. Second trip, I'm a toddler, right? So it's kind of like, that's how I feel I am on this journey. But I know, like, I'm aware, like, that I'm on a journey.
Mm.
Like before, I wasn't aware. I was just like totally asleep to everything. So that's what kind of like Enfold has given me. It's like, it's helped me just really get to know John.
Mm.
And that's what I'm like eternally grateful for.
Yeah. Well said,
Yeah.
brother. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Given that it sounds like this medicine has given you so much already, do you foresee any time in the future where you may, um, yeah, desire to have another experience to continue learning more? And yeah, just curious if you have a sense of whether there's any 5-MeO in your future, given that you've already had these pretty profound experiences, it sounds like.
Yeah. I think so.
Mhm.
I think I'm looking at next year again. The question is, I have to ask, so why do you want to go back? I mean, you've done this integration, you've done all this work, and you're at a place of peace. Why? I think because I feel like there's more work for me to do.
Mhm.
I think, something that I've learned about the medicine is that for me, it's a calling. So, when I went through the ceremony last year, when I say a calling, soon after that, there was huge amount of changes in my life. And I think if I hadn't been to Enfold, I would have defaulted to my normal way of dealing with trauma,
Mhm.
right? And same thing this year with my surgery. And so I think or you feel like there is a deeper awareness that you would like to experience.
Mhm.
And so, I feel that. I feel like I'm doing the work now. I feel like I'm in a peaceful place, but there's other things that there's much more that I like to do, because part of it again is a reset of the nervous system, right? And for myself, even though, after two ceremonies, I believe that the medicine has really helped me in that process. I really think that there probably are some other things that I've experienced that are deeper
Mhm.
than I'm aware of, that I like to explore. And I think also, I've been able to let go of so much that I would like to have the experience from kind of like a new baseline, a new place, a new feeling, not coming from fear.
Mhm.
Because I think, part of it, um, was a little bit fear. I think I heard the question like the first time you go to Info, you know, uh, you're a little bit scared, but the second time you go, you're terrified, right? That is true,
We might have to cut that out, but probably not. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it was nothing like that. It was just total peace. You think because you know the experience that you've been through the first time. You're like, second time, you're like, oh my God, right? Like,
Mhm.
why am I doing this? But it was nothing like that. I wasn't terrified. I was totally at peace the second time. I think I was the last one to go. So I was like all day,
Yeah.
I was just totally at peace,
Mm.
And so uh, it's kind of like, I just want to see if there's other work for me to do. And so I feel like, yeah, I think, I want to continue the process. And I think the medicine has helped me do that. And I want to see what's next.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, John, yeah, I've so appreciated this conversation and having you here. But I wonder if, in closing, because you talk about fear, and that's something that people commonly fear before this medicine, and perhaps even especially before their first experience, because they don't know what to expect. Could
Right.
you, yeah, offer some, say, piece of advice or wisdom? What would you say to somebody who is perhaps preparing for their first 5-MeO DMT experience, but is yeah, really feeling a lot of fear or nervousness? What advice would you give to somebody like that?
I would say, meet yourself where you are, that it's normal to feel that way. Our ego wants to be in control. It's aware of what we're about to do or what you're about to do.
Mhm.
Um, and, and trust yourself. You know, you're thinking about doing this because you feel that that's a part of you that needs more healing. Trust that part of you. And trust also that self has been the true self that has gotten you to where you are. And that self, the true eternal self, will help you when you're at Enfold. I can tell you,
Mhm.
Austin, Steve, you guys, I think you guys are universal angels, going around acting like humans, right?
We think the same about you, John. Yeah.
But I do. I just tell you, you're in such safe hands. I said at the last when I was there last, like the thing over the past 2 years that really, really gave me peace is I remember in the medicine ceremony, I can remember Steve and Austin saying to this day and always that, John, you are safe.
Mm.
John, you are safe. And that was eternal to me. Like I still hear their voices and I can tell you, you will be safe at Info.
Mm.
You will always, you know, be glad about the courage. And it's really not about courage because I don't want to make it sound like, if you don't have that, there's something, is missing. But it's about, even when you feel apprehension and fear, being willing to take that step and trust yourself that you are strong enough and you are worthy to have this experience because you deserve it. You deserve
Mm.
to find peace.
Mhm. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect place to close our conversation for now there. But yeah, John, thanks so much again for taking the time, and don't tell anyone else. Keep this between me and you, but you're one of, my favorite guests that we've ever supported, and would love to, yeah, hopefully see you again in the future, and really appreciate you taking the time today on your birthday. And yeah, so happy
Yeah.
birthday.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you, Arthur. I appreciate, Steve and Austin, what you guys have done really to help change my life. And,
Mm,
I know we're eternal brothers and sisters on
mm,
this journey together to help people heal. So I just thank you for helping me, realize that.
mm.
So, yeah, man,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Well, and thank you, John. Yeah, it's a great pleasure. And yeah, thanks for taking the time. And we'll look forward to seeing you again when we see you.
You will. Absolutely.
All right, brother. Take care.
Thank you.